What's up, Star Wars nerds? Welcome to another episode of Brett on Fett. On today's episode, I'm going to recap the recent Hasbro Pulse Fanstream reveals, plus the new Aurra Sing reissue arrived, and I've got an awesome custom Luke Skywalker Farm Boy accessory to show you. Let's get to it. Welcome back to the channel. This is episode 114 of Brett on Fett. And this past Tuesday, March 25th, 2025, Hasbro had yet another Pulse fan stream with a ton of reveals. It was an awesome fan stream for Vintage Collection especially, but had some decent reveals for the Black Series as well. So I'm going to go over that in a bit. Before we get to that, the new reissue of the Aurra Sing figure arrived this past week. So I just want to give you my quick thoughts on her. And then a bit later on, we'll get into my little mini mission to acquire some awesome accessories for the new Farm Boy Luke Skywalker, including a really fantastic custom accessory. All right, so here is my original TVC 1.0 Aurra Sing. I got this one signed by Miss Shoni Boriak last year at ICC Con. And here is the reissue on the alternative card back. Really like this alternate card back. I think it's probably a better image of her on the film out. Although the first one was not bad. You can see inside the bubble, it is missing quite a bit. You can see there was a lot more stuff going on inside that blister on the original release. And so that's unfortunate that they've skipped out on some accessories. Switching over to the back, you can see there are similar styles that they've gone back to with the new cards. Only they're just showing the image of the same release on the new ones versus before they would show the original release, or they would just show an image of the character from the film like they've done here. You'll notice the VC number was kept exactly the same, VC73, and we finally got some clarification from Hasbro on how they're going to do the VC numbering moving forward. And for straight reissues, re-released figures with zero changes, no new tooling, deco, or accessories will keep their original VC numbers, whereas updated figures, re-released figures with minor changes such as updated deco, accessories, tooling, or articulation will get a VC number plus a suffix like VC73A. Now Hasbro continues to frustrate me because they've said updates are with minor deco. Well, I think doing an all-new photoreal face is a minor deco change, so to me it's not the exact same reissued figure with zero changes, so therefore I think this one should qualify as a VC73A. Me personally, I wanted them to use the A even if you're just using an alternate card back. So again, they just can't seem to keep things consistent, but I think this is at least a good step in the right direction that they're putting these rules out there. Just to go over the other two rules, debuts, totally new characters will get an all new VC number, and remakes that are mostly or fully retooled versions of previously released figures will also get a new VC number. No issues there. All right, so here she is out of the packaging, and we can take a closer look at her. And I gotta say, she's not as terrible as I thought she would be in hand. She has swivel hips, obviously outdated, but at least like her chains, her belt stuff, it kind of covers up the swivel hips. It's got that antenna that's a little bit on the thick side. And it's really weird, but the crunch swivel joint is right there at the upper chest. Very awkward place, but I guess they were trying to conceal it with her, won't go into that. So the worst thing about this figure is clearly that there is zero articulation at the ankles. There's just nothing going on there in the legs below the knee. The knee hinges get you 90 degrees, but I don't really know what good that does you if you have no articulation in the ankles. You've got swivel wrists. Taking a look at the face sculpt, and this is the only difference in the reissue, is updated photoreal, and it looks nice. Here's the old one. Sorry, I don't have the old one loose, so it's a little bit awkward to compare, but you can see the old one looks pretty scary compared to the new one. She kind of reminds me of a war boy from Mad Max. A lot heavier on the mascara on the old one, looks kind of like raccoon eyes, so I do think the reissue is an improvement. Here she is with her gargantuan sniper rifle. It's a little bit awkward to try to pose her with this gun. And again, the new release is missing accessories, namely this case of lightsabers that I assume are Jedi that she's killed. Also, I noticed on the new version they did not paint the hilts on her pistols. They painted the barrel ends, which is good, but they skimped out on painting the hilts, so that was kind of disappointing as well. So overall, I'd say this is not a great release. They probably could have skipped out on doing this one, or it would have been much prefer to just give us an all-new Aurra Sing. But at the same time, I do have to admit, she's not as terrible as I thought she would be having her in hand. The articulation is pretty unforgivable, and the missing accessories is also disappointing. But as a background character, I really think you could do a lot worse, and I'm glad you don't have to pay secondary prices on the original version just to get her loose. Alright, so let's run through those latest Hasbro Pulse Fanstream reveals, and we'll go ahead and start with the Black Series. And by now, I think everyone understands that the Black Series is going to focus on getting those new media characters. And so they're continuing that by trying to fill out the cast of characters from the Ahsoka series. So we got a couple of those for you today, including Ezra Bridger Peridia. This is his, stranded on Peridia look. He's a little bit older. He's got the full beard going on. And he looks pretty good. A lot of nice little sculpted accessories around the belt. I really like his boots. The sculpting details on his boots is pretty awesome. So yeah, pretty good looking character. Nothing too exciting for me personally with this reveal. It's probably something I would not have picked up if I was still picking up Black Series figures. But definitely he is a very necessary character from that series, and I really hope that we eventually get him in the Vintage Collection. Next up from Ahsoka is the Night Trooper. Now this is the Death Trooper version of the zombie Night Troopers. It's kind of funny to me that they've just named it Night Trooper because that's what they called the regular Stormtrooper Night Troopers, and so they didn't even make up a separate name for the Death Trooper version. But then again, I'm sure it's a little bit difficult to name this one. You're not going to want to call him Death Night Trooper or Night Death Trooper. Doesn't exactly roll off the tongue, so maybe they just struggled with the name and just eventually gave up and just called it Night Trooper. But whatever you call this guy, I am jealous of this Black Series release because this was on my top 25 most wanted TVC figures that I entered in for the March Madness. I really think this is a cool looking figure. I'm not into collecting horror genre figures like a lot of people are, but I think it's okay and pretty cool actually to introduce a couple of those kind of elements into Star Wars, and I can't think of a better way than to introduce it via a Death Trooper. And so I thought this guy was really cool when he popped up in Ahsoka. Totally fine with it, and I think it just would make a really cool figure in both Black Series and TVC. And I think they've done a good job on this one. Now, I admit in the promo photos, it kind of makes him look like he's frumpy, like he's got like a beer gut. But when you see him in person on the live stream, he doesn't look like that at all. It's just kind of the angle of the photos, I think. And the bandages are molded on, not painted on. And I like the zombie mold of his head behind the helmet. And I think it was just done really well. So I think this is a really good figure. If I was still buying Black Series figures, I definitely would pick this one up. And lastly, for Black Series, they revealed SM33, the droid from Skeleton Crew. This is a deluxe release for the Black Series. And he comes with his shields. He comes with a tiny little rat alien thing that lives in his head. And they actually included a little stand because he's got a peg leg. And I guess he's just not stable enough to stand on his own all the time. So that's actually a nice touch that they included that. I can see where that could be a little bit difficult for people to pose him and keep him stable. I actually thought that was a good idea for Hasbro to go ahead and include that little stand. Now to me, the coolest feature of this figure is that his legs actually extend to when he goes into tall, menacing mode. Now he does look rather odd with all of that compressed in his short mode. And I don't remember him looking that frumpy and awkward in his shorter mode on the show, but maybe he did and I just didn't notice it. Definitely looks way better when you extend those legs, and yeah, it looks much cooler that way. So but that is a neat feature that they did that, and I can see why this would be considered a deluxe, especially these days. But yeah, pretty cool figure. Again, I think this would probably be another one I would buy if I was still buying Black Series. Alright, so pretty solid reveals for the Black Series, but I think the champion of the day on this fan stream was definitely the Vintage Collection with some very exciting reveals. Now we'll start off with just a repack reveal, and that is Dengar, the figure that officially kicked off the Vintage Collection line. I actually think this is a really fantastic repack because it's VC01. It's the one that started it all. Now they're naming it VC01A because it's a repack, it's a re-release, and that's what they're going to be doing moving forward apparently. And I love that they put him on an alternate card back. Again, this is the way to go, Hasbro, for repacks. So it doesn't take away from the value of the original release that people have, and it gives carded collectors an alternative card back to collect. It's just a win-win. You know, people who are openers, you know, they're not going to care. But for those of us that keep it carded, it means a lot to be able to collect an alternate card back and to keep that original release, somewhat special to us. Here's a look at the back of the card, and again, they've named it VC01A, which I'm fine with. I actually like that they're adding the A for, alternate card backs, alternate releases of the same figure. I know there's going to be naysayers that say we shouldn't re-release outdated figures with swivel hips, and to some extent I agree with that, but in the case of Dengar, I'm willing to give him a pass on like the swivel hips because I think this figure was just really well done. He looks really good. They've updated his face with the photo reel, and I thought that was an excellent sculpt for back in the day. It still holds up in my opinion. And I love the details on his backpack. Honestly, of all the ESB bounty hunters we have in TBC, I think Dengar was the one that needs an update the least. So I am totally fine with them reissuing this. Again, I know he's got the swivel hips, but I think he's posable enough. He's kind of a frumpy guy. You don't need him just doing extreme poses. I think he's fine, and he's just so expensive on the aftermarket, and people like me who love the bounty hunters, they want to get their hands on this guy, and if they spend $100 on a carded Dengar, they're not going to want to open him up. So it's just nice to be able to get one to open and to get that alternate card back. So I think it's a great release. I am all for anything related to Empire Strikes Back bounty hunters, and I'm just really happy for fans who haven't been able to get their hands on a loose Dengar to finally be able to do that and enjoy him. I think when you get him in hand, you'll really see that it is a good enough figure for a reissue. Next up, I just put out a video last week on my top 10 most wanted figures from Rebels, and Agent Kallus, or Alexander Kallus, was on my list, I believe at number 3, and sure enough, they finally revealed that Alexander Kallus is coming to TBC, and he's in the exact look I was hoping for with his modified officer's uniform and his combat helmet. Very awesome, really impressed with this one. Now, I have to admit, I was a little bit surprised he's coming with a bow rifle, but it's pretty cool. I think this is going to look really great, especially if you have him squaring off against Zeb. And it's just a really fantastic figure. His head sculpt is great. I think they do a very good job of making those realistic interpretations of animated characters. The only thing disappointing to me for this reveal is the actual card back they've used. I think they could have found a better image of Kallus, preferably one maybe with his helmet on, or like the pose I showed earlier where he's standing at attention next to the stormtroopers. I just don't really care for that particular film out they went with. But it is VC365, and other than the card back film out, I think this is a great release and a much needed addition to the Rebels line of TBC. Next, we've been asking for her in the line for years. She's done very well in the March Madness polls. On the recent 2025 March Madness, she made it all the way to the championship up against Mara Jade and just fell short. But it's okay because Hasbro revealed Asajj Ventress from the Clone Wars. Finally, we're getting this figure. This is probably the most exciting reveal, in my opinion, of the fan stream, and she looks absolutely fantastic. She's got the soft goods dress, and she's got the dual lightsabers lit and unlit. The unlit lightsabers attached to her belt buckle, just like in the show. That's very cool. The sculpt looks great. I love the deco on her head. There's just a lot of things going on with this figure. She looks fantastic. The lightsabers can come together. And yeah, just really happy about this release. Finally, we got that awesome Count Dooku last year. We need Asajj to go with him. So really happy about that. This is a great reveal. She's going to look fantastic. And that card back looks amazing. Very good film out choice as opposed to the Kallus one we just talked about. So really happy overall with this release. Can't wait to get her. Next up, a really special moment from the fan stream is the brought in actor Paul Sun-Young Lee, who played Carson Teva in The Mandalorian and Ahsoka, and they finally revealed that they are bringing to TBC a Carson Teva figure, and it was really awesome to see Paul in there. If you didn't see it, they did a little funny sketch where he had sent them a petition that was clearly fake of tens of fans that were all fake names petitioning for a Carson Teva figure. That was great, and you could tell he was really touched that they finally made a figure, and he was really happy with it. You know, Paul is one of us. He is a true fan. He is a collector of Star Wars, and so it's just really awesome that he's on the show. But very special moment for him to finally get his figure, and the figure itself looks great. I really love that they went with the look where he's got his pilot's jacket on. I think that's a great look for that character. My minor disappointment is, I like the card back film outs to match the release, and they went with the Carson piloting his X-Wing look rather than his look with his jacket on. And that just kind of slightly annoys me. It's not a terrible card back by any means, and I know with X-Wing pilots, they always like to focus on images of them in the cockpit. And so I kind of understand why they did it from that standpoint, but I would have much preferred they went with the film out wearing that jacket. And then they could do a new release of Carson later on where he's just in his pilot's outfit in the cockpit. I wouldn't be mad at that. So, just a slight disappointment, but not a huge deal. That's just my OCD kicking in, I think. And overall, I think the figure looks excellent. It is an all-new sculpt. They mentioned that on the video. I think they did a great job with the jacket. I love the details of the little patches on his jacket. That was done really well. His helmet looks great. He comes with that big blaster rifle, and helmet size looks good. It doesn't look oversized. It fits snugly. And yeah, just overall happy with this release. It's amazing it took this long to get Carson in the line, considering he's in so much of the new media today. So just really happy for Paul, and a very exciting release. All right, I've saved this reveal for the end because it does tie into the custom accessory I want to show you guys, but it is the reveal of the land speeder. We had this pipelined in the previous stream. We knew this was coming, and they finally showed it off. The packaging looks excellent. Really happy with that. A real callback to the original vintage Kenner line. And here is a look at the land speeder itself. It is a retooled version of the land speeder. I think it looks excellent. I love the engine compartment under it. I think it's got some good weathering on there. It's got some dings on the body. The engine looks great. I like the interior. It has a real callback to the original Kenner land speeder, including the gear switch. If you move it, it actually unlocks the clear wheels that drop below the ship. And I think that's awesome. I love that callback to the original Kenner land speeder. I think it'll look good to give it that hovering look. I've heard that some people don't like the wheels and think that's just kind of cheesy. I love it. I think that was a great idea. They're translucent, so it's just not a big deal to me. And if you don't like it, you just retract the wheels. Not a big deal. So I think that's a great feature. Overall, very happy with the land speeder. And it does come with a deluxe version of the Farm Boy Luke. Now, I wasn't positive this version of Luke would come with the land speeder, but what I was positive about is that they were going to have this deluxe release with the sun hat, with the poncho. I think I talked about this when I did my Farm Boy Luke review, that I was certain they would do this version of Luke as a deluxe release. And of course, it's on that deluxe card back. And I'm not happy about that. I mean, you guys have heard my rants about the wider deluxe card backs, but I'm not as upset about it as I was, for instance, with the Hammerhead, because at least with Farm Boy Luke, we got the original 96 version of that Luke on a standard card. That was the right thing to do. And this is just an alternate card back. It's an awesome alternate card back. And so I would just much prefer it to be on a standard card, so it just kind of fits better in with my collection. So I'm not happy about that, but it's not as a big a deal as the original 96 version going on a deluxe card back. So I'll just live with it. They've labeled this one VC344A since it is a reissue of the Farm Boy Luke, but with more accessories. Now, that being said, they did do some additional weathering to the boots, and they've actually changed out the lower part of his tunic for soft goods so he can sit in the land speeder better. So it is a modified version of the Luke Skywalker. It's not the exact same version with just additional accessories. So keep that in mind. Probably means I'm going to want to take this one off card, and then I've got to decide if I want to buy a whole other land speeder set just to have the carded version. I think with it being the deluxe card, I'm probably just going to go ahead and buy the one and just open it and just not worry about displaying that carded figure. And then maybe later, if the land speeder goes on discount, I'll buy an extra one just to keep a carded version, or I'll try to find a carded version on eBay. Now, the accessories that he comes with are very nice. Obviously, you got the poncho, you saw the sun hat. He also comes with the long rifle, and he comes with his micro binocs, and that's the great accessory. I'm really glad they threw in the binocs, because I couldn't use binocs from the Saga line because they just don't fit in his hand properly. And if you're wondering, yes, the binocs do attach to his belt along with the unlit lightsaber and his droid collar. So great to see that all three of those accessories can attach to his belt on this deluxe version of Luke. So overall, I really do love this land speeder release. I think the land speeder itself looks great, and I'm really happy with the way the deluxe Luke turned out. Just wish he wasn't on those deluxe card backs, but it is what it is. But all in all, this was a fantastic Hasbro fan stream, especially for the vintage collection. Really excited about all of these reveals. We got some much needed releases, including Callus, Asajj Ventress, and Carson Teva, and a solid reveal for the continuation of the Return to Tatooine campaign, which is not done yet. We're gonna get some more. We know we got the Obi-Wan Kenobi coming. I'm almost certain we're going to get a Sand Trooper reveal, and I think there's going to be a Beast reveal, which I'm holding out hope for a dewback. I think it would be awesome to get a brand new Sand Trooper and a brand new dewback for the vintage collection. All right, here's my farm boy Luke, and I was very confident that Hasbro was going to give us a version with his sun hat and his poncho. I wasn't so sure they would give us some other accessories I've been wanting, and the first of those was his little model T-16 Skyhopper. So I went on a little mission to find the T-16 Skyhopper, and I knew that he came with this Power of the Force 2 version of Luke Skywalker. So I picked him up on a Facebook live sale. I think I paid $12 for it, which is a pretty good deal. There's a Skyhopper inside. He's also got a little tool in his other hand. And, you know, pretty good release for back in the day. Here's a look at the back of the car. There's the image of him playing with his T-16. And we're going to get this bad boy open. So here's everything out of the packaging. You can see he comes with his little Comtech chip. And these are pretty cool. They have this, like, iridescent look to them. See on the back it says, Luke Skywalker status, aspiring Rebel Alliance pilot. So pretty cool. And he's got this little tool. I think this is like a spanner. I don't know. Maybe you can tell me in the comments exactly what tool this is. Not really sure. And here is the accessory that I was after, the T-16 Skyhopper little model thingy. And it's kind of a rubbery plastic, but pretty sturdy. And we might as well take a look at Luke himself. And he's not too bad. He's not the big beefed up steroids Luke from the earlier Power of the Force 2 lines. He's got some nice weathering on the boot, so, you know, not a terrible figure for the day. And here is my TVC farm boy Luke with the T-16 Skyhopper model. And as you can see, he fits just fine in Luke's hand. Works out pretty well. You can move his arm around. You can twist this and angle the Skyhopper, you know, different ways if you want to. So yeah, it works out pretty good. Let's get him a couple of poses on the spinny. So very happy with the T-16 Skyhopper. I think this old accessory does just fine. Now it's on to my second mission. So the other accessory I've been after is the Blast Shield helmet, and it's because it's such an iconic scene. It's the first time we actually see Luke use the Force. And there is another Power of the Force 2 version of the same Luke that does come with the Blast Shield helmet. However, it's not that great, so I wasn't sure if I wanted to buy it, but then perfect timing, serendipity occurred, and I found this. This is an awesome custom Blast Shield helmet. It was 3D printed by Coruscant Customs on Etsy. And a guy named Alex that I found on Facebook had bought a couple of these and he had painted up one himself and it looked absolutely amazing. So I reached out to him since he had an extra one that he was offering and he was able to hook me up. Now guys, I do not do painting myself. I am not artistic. I do not have a steady hand. And this thing has little small water slide decals. So I asked Alex if he would be willing to paint it up for me and do the decals and all that, and he agreed, and it turned out absolutely fantastic. Let's take a closer look at this thing. You can see the water slide decals that could not have been easy to apply, and Alex nailed the weathering on this thing. I think it matches the source material really well, especially with that blast shield. And again, props also to Coruscant Customs because the mold on this thing is excellent, and the helmet fits really well. It's very snug. It comes off and on, you know, fairly easily. It's not super loose. Overall, I'm just super excited about this accessory. It is better than anything Hasbro would have given us. By the way, Alex has a brand new Instagram page. Go give him a follow. It's at GenLex_Creations97. That's GenLex Creations97 on Instagram. He does toy photography and customizations. Go check him out. All right, so that's going to do it for this episode of Brett on Fett. Let me know in the comments what you thought about the latest Hasbro Fanstream reveals. Thanks for checking out this video. Thank you so much to my subscribers. Don't forget you can also follow me on Instagram. Take care, and we'll see you next time.